Howdy guys, and welcome to night 67 of the overnight feed recaps for Big Brother season 24, and welcome to Cliff Notes as well. A solemn 9/11 to all of y'all out there. 21 years ago today, never forget those attacks. I know when I was in the house back in 2019, we actually woke up, did a little commemorative ceremony, sang the national anthem, and just talked a little bit about the 9/11 attacks. And one of my favorite memories of being in that house. So again, a solemn 9/11 to y'all. All right, now let's talk about the Big Brother house. Let's talk about what happened yesterday following the veto competition. So first of all, as a quick refresher, quick reminder, Monty's HOH, Brittany and Alyssa are on the block for now because we had an early morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, more or less, veto competition, and Brittany has won the veto, so obviously she'll be pulling herself off the block. Monty's gonna, kind of his worst nightmare, he's gonna have to put someone up in place of Brittany, and so we had a lot of conversations taking place to do with that. So here's the question: does Monty put up Taylor or Turner? At one point when it first happened, I was kind of trying to think Turner, but then I realized that then you lose Turner's vote. I hadn't completely thought it through at the time. I really think at this point in time, and it sounds like he's leaning towards putting Taylor up instead, but there's certainly a lot of conversations that take place with that. The main thing is that you're going to have this coming up week, 2 votes send someone out the door. Well, Brittany's safe. She's pulling herself off, so Brittany's 1 vote. So what it comes down to Monty almost isn't so much who's going on the block in Brittany's place, but who is going to be that extra vote that Monty's releasing for this vote coming up. Who does he want voting alongside Brittany? Does he want it to be Taylor? Does he want it to be Turner? Well, we're going to find out now. We're going to talk about it today. All right, so about that veto competition. Sounds like the house guests were woken up with an alarm, maybe giving them 2 minutes or so to make it to the backyard. Once upon a time, one of the earlier seasons of Big Brother, they did something similar on this. So we're making a little bit of assumptions here and just going off of what was talked about. But the house guests were woken up, given a very quick time period to get downstairs for this competition. Apparently, Monty didn't make it, and so he wasn't allowed to even play in a veto competition. Now, he had said previously that he didn't necessarily want to win this thing and have to make the decision. Kind of thinking he maybe wishes he had played it now after seeing Brittany winning it and really putting a difficult decision in his hands at this point. But Monty didn't get to play, so we only had four house guests competing. And the competition sounds like it was some kind of comp involving gears and ladders and maybe setting them up just right, using the right size gears, putting in pegs on holes or something like that in order to... I'm making a visual picture of assembling all this together, so maybe you can turn something on one end and it sets something off on the other end, something along those lines. But again, Brittany won it. So someone pointed out a little bit later, I may have it in my notes, someone said, Michael, geez, running through an escape room, haunted house, kind of darkened room, and now doing something with all these gears, a puzzle like this, they said Michael would have dominated both these competitions. Yeah, I think he would have. For the sake of all the people left in the house, probably a good thing you got Michael out when you did, because otherwise, yeah, he probably would have had both of these. So that is the competition itself, and I'm curious. I'm excited to see that played on the TV episode because it's different than anything we've seen, it seems like. All right, so let's talk about what actually happened. Before we talk overnight, just real quick recap of some of the conversations that took place during the day, because they're very important. During the day, Monty met with everyone and promised Turner he isn't going to be the renom once Brittany comes off. Had a long talk with Brittany where she pushed to put up Turner. She pushed pretty hard and that kind of backfired on her. Monty then had a long talk to the cameras about how fed up he is with Brittany, with her BS, that, yeah, the fact that she's pushing to put Turner up, just that much more reason not to do so. But he also told Taylor as well about how fed up he is, how bad the conversation went with Brittany, and that, here's the thing, he told Taylor, he said, I want you to stay, and if I put you on the block, we will keep you over Alyssa. He says, if it comes down to a tiebreaker, I'll vote to break the tie to save you. The assumption is Brittany would vote to save Taylor. Turner would potentially vote to save Alyssa. Maybe not, but potentially vote to save Alyssa. And if that happened, then Monty would cast the vote to keep Taylor. So he's telling Taylor, saying, look, you're going to be good. I'll protect you if you do go on the block. And it sounds like that's what's going to happen. And he also told Turner that Taylor had discussed a final 3 with him and Turner. And Turner and Monty are both like, yeah, all right, well, final 3, Taylor, we can work with that. Sure, absolutely. So sounds like we may not have a final 3. Obviously, it depends not even so much on who wins this next HOH, but who wins the veto as to whether this final 3 comes to fruition. But I think there's a decent chance that we could see that happening. I think you're going to lose Alyssa this week. Monty's made it clear that Brittany is his target for next week. I think Turner's perfectly fine with that as well. Taylor, we'll see where Taylor's head's at as well. All right, so with all of that being said, let's talk about the actual feeds that took place overnight last night. All right, first of all, we'll start off with Taylor and Brittany. Brittany is complaining that Turner lies about everything. Pot, kettle, they just comes to mind. Brittany's complaining that Turner lies about everything, and that in not going after Turner, Monty is going to be making the same mistake that Michael made last week of leaving a strong threat in the house that's going to turn on him and send him out the door. Maybe. Monty and Turner, though, have a final 2, which may give a little protection that Michael didn't have. But she's saying he's going to make the same mistake that Michael had. She's saying, look, if he was to take out Turner right now, what a huge mark on his resume it would be for Monty. It would be huge for the jury to hear that and everything else. Taylor is saying, we just have to find a way to convince them to put Turner on the block. We've still got a little time. Let's figure out if there's a way we can do that. Taylor's also talking about the last thing that she wants is Alyssa and Monty and Turner hanging out together and getting closer to one another. So as much time as Brittany likes to spend with Taylor, she's saying we got to make sure those 3 don't hang around too much either. We've got to kind of interfere as much as possible. Taylor's also telling Brittany to just chill out for a little bit, figure out a way to get Monty to trust Brittany before the veto ceremony. Yeah, that's not going to happen. There's no way you're going to solve that little issue in the next 24 hours or so. But she's saying, just chill out. We'll figure out how to do it. The main thing, Monty had told Taylor at one point, he said, look, I'm tired of that. If Brittany keeps coming up to him, I'm just going to have to call her out and say, just shut it down. I'm tired of listening to the conversations and hearing all her BS. The last thing that Brittany wants to do is go right back up to the HOH room and try to get in Monty's ear at this point in time. It would not go well. Taylor realizes that, so she's trying to get Brittany just to chill out for a little bit. I think it's a smart suggestion. I'm not sure Brittany's going to take it. Monty is going to be hearing a whole lot of conversations with Brittany this week, I do believe. All right, so they've got that. And then finally, Brittany's saying that all of this lack of trust and everything else goes back to Turner, at the conversation she had with Turner, and Turner lying about this final 2 proposition with her that he said she had made and all that. And it all has to do with that. I think there's a little bit more to it than that, but that certainly didn't help her position any at all. All right, we've got Brittany and Alyssa talking. Alyssa is a little upset. She's a little sad. She spent a lot of time in bed yesterday crying and just feeling a little depressed and everything else. But we've got Brittany and Alyssa talking at this point. Brittany's talking about Michael, really kind of missing him a little bit. She's worried about how Michael feels about her now. Is that from the jury vote or more personal? Probably both a little bit, but she's worried about that. She is happy that the audience clapped as much as they did when he walked out the door. She's wishing that she had just taken a second to tell him it was okay. Apparently he apologized to her very briefly after the speech when he was evicted. I didn't see that. Seems maybe it was during the vote or something, but apparently he apologized a little bit to her after the speech, and she didn't say anything or didn't tell him it was okay. Wish she'd done that. Alyssa's saying that, this is where it comes in. Alyssa's the one who says, these last 2 competitions, Michael would have won this going away, which, again, maybe that's what Brittany wanted. She said she was happy in second place, right? Well, if Michael's still in the house, that's probably where she'd be headed. All right, we've got Brittany and Monty outside talking. Monty's saying it's interesting to see how people respond when their back is against the wall. Who could he be talking about? Is he kind of subtly referencing Brittany and the way she kind of panics a little bit? Perhaps. But he's mentioning that. Brittany is saying that Now we're Xavier and Big D and Ozza and Kylan. We're gonna be the Final Four and all that. That's who we are. You're kind of Cliff too, right? Yeah, I was Final Four. I can understand and empathize with everything these house guests are going through. Brittany is talking about being from Texas. She said, "Yeah, I tried a lot of times. I applied from California. I applied from Texas, from New York." She said, "I think applying from Texas probably helped get me cast." Well, that could be. I think they like the loud, braggadocious kind of folks that we are down here in Texas. But she's also saying, there's a little talk. I think this is Monty saying, talking about Michael in this last veto competition. You remember he broke his belt in the middle of the competition. It maybe slowed him down a little bit, kind of flustered him just a little bit. Well, Monty mentions during this conversation with Brittany that Big Brother had said before the competition that if your cord breaks, you'll just have to figure it out. And I'm not sure exactly what that means, but apparently they had made some kind of mention about being careful. And they did that with some of our competition, saying if you're too rough with a puzzle piece, if you're too rough with this or that and it breaks or something happens, that's on you. It's just going to be the way it is. So maybe they said something like that about the cord and the belt and everything as well, because Monty's brought this up just a little bit. Monty's talking about how lucky Michael was that he even lasted to the double like he did. He's saying, Michael was lucky that you drew his chip in last week's veto competition, because if that hadn't happened, he would have been the block. He would have gone home them. He never would have even made it to Thursday night. So he's pointing that out. They start talking about the jury a little bit, wondering what the jury is going to value. Is the jury going to be valuing big moves? Are they going to be valuing honest play, relationships, social games, brutality? They don't really know. And I have a feeling this is not really a game discussion so much, but I think probably there's a little bit of a suggestion from Brittany, an implication in here about this, getting back the idea of, hey, you get at Turner, it's a huge move on your resume, because she's trying to kind of suggest that big moves could be a winning formula to get in the jury's vote. All right, so we've got that. Now we've got Taylor and Brittany talking to each other. Brittany's saying that Turner has been very distant with her today. She's wondering if Turner knows that she knows all the BS that he's been saying about her. I think everyone knows, right? Brittany's saying that she had a good non-game talk with Monty, that there was an intention behind it. She wanted Monty to see her as a human and not just a pawn, a piece on a chessboard. She wanted him to see her as a human. See, there's nothing that's not gameplay in Big Brother. Even when it's the most casual conversation, there's motives behind everything that happens inside that house. She's talking about them talking to Monty together. I think Taylor actually brings this up, says, let's talk to Monty together, you and I both. We'll tell him all the protections that we can provide to them if he's just willing to put up Turner on the block to take your place. Brittany is saying that there's such a low chance of Alyssa beating Taylor and Brittany in any competition, which is why they want Turner on the block so much, so they can send him out the door, regardless of what they tell Monty. Monty can't play in the HOH next week. If Turner gets booted, then the three people playing for HOH are Brittany, Taylor, and Alyssa. So Brittany and Taylor figure they've got a pretty good shot at that point in time. One of them gets safety. Now, it does come down to veto to kind of make the decision who else goes home, but they like there are chances, like the fact that one of them could win this HOH going right up into the final three. All right, at this point, we've got Alyssa coming out, joining Brittany and Taylor, so the gameplay conversation kind of shuts down. No game talk. They're talking about modeling, pageants, whether many people watch the live feeds in the middle of the evening. Well, one person does. So they're talking about that a little bit. Alyssa's saying that regardless of what happens this week, that she's glad that she got to know Taylor and Brittany a little bit better before someone heads out the door. Now, here's my thought. First of all, remember Brittany and Taylor saying we can't have those three hanging out together. We need to try to stop that. Well, how dangerous is it for the three girls to be hanging out in the backyard talking like this, while at the same time Taylor is trying to convince Monty that she wouldn't vote Turner out if Monty went ahead and put Turner on the block. The guys aren't outside. I think they're probably asleep at this point. They're really not on the feeds. But if one of them came out and saw the three women talking, does that make you feel a little bit less comfortable about putting Turner up on the block? Yeah, I think so. So I think these three need to be careful as well. All right, following that, we've got a middle-of-the-night meal of chicken wings that Taylor's fixing. And when I say middle of the night, it's like 2:30 or so Big Brother time. These house guests never sleep. So little chicken wings from Taylor. Eventually, we get Monty and Taylor alone. I think Brittany maybe went to the DR and Turner and Alyssa are asleep. So it's just Monty and Taylor talking. Taylor starts off saying, look, we got time. I don't want to overwhelm you with game talk. And Monty's saying, yeah, let's talk about it tomorrow. It's late and all that. But then she proceeds to do a little game talk anyway. She tells Monty, she says, look, you're asking me to trust you by saying that if you go on the block, you're good. I'll protect you. I'll save you with the vote. She's saying, so you're asking me to trust you, but let me trust, I could show you trust by putting Turner on the block and me not voting Turner out. You're asking me to trust you, but you aren't giving me the chance to show trust back to you in return. And I think Monty says, yeah, fair enough. Well, here's the difference. The difference is Monty's in power, and she's not. So Monty doesn't have to rely on trust. Taylor does just a little bit more, but she's pointing out that all you gotta do is trust me. Put Taylor up or Turner up. I won't vote him out, and then you'll know that I'm part of the team. I don't think that level of trust is there just yet. Monty responds basically by saying, look, why in the world would you and Brittany not vote out Turner if you had the opportunity? He said it would be the most logical game move ever. Why in the world would you not do it? And I think Taylor brings up a little bit about how she saw how Turner responded when Michael and Brittany had talked about Kyle's conversations, and that Turner turned right around and put Kyle on the block. So she's trying to say there's a little bit of a relationship there, that she wouldn't do that to Turner, but I don't think Monty's buying it. He's not going to put Turner in that type of risky position, because if Turner goes home, now it's Monty and the three girls. Where do you think Monty ends up on that particular grouping, right? Yeah, he knows better than that. All right, we do have, at this point, Monty throwing out some scenarios saying, look, if Turner wins HOH, say Turner wins, he says, let's look at the scenarios. Either you and Brittany are on the block, and if that's the case, I've got veto, and I'll vote to save you, Taylor. He says, or me and Brittany are on the block, and you get to decide which of the two of us goes home. So he says, even if Turner's is HOH, the scenarios aren't bad for you. They should still be fine for you, Taylor. So he's trying to work some things out, make her feel more comfortable about her position. But they've talked about Michael and Brittany, and so they continue that conversation just a little bit more. Monty's telling Taylor, saying, look, when Michael and Brittany came up to the HOH room and revealed this, or the have-not room, I think is where they told Monty, says, when Michael and Brittany revealed Kyle's conversations about concerns about cookout and all that, so much talk about it. He said, when they did all of that, he said it was obvious they had already thought this thing through. They said that, immediately said, we're going to talk to Turner about putting Kyle on the block. He's saying it's obvious that they planned this reveal just right to try to get Kyle out, to try to help their game. He's saying it was all about gameplay. And I think he's trying to drive a little bit of a wedge between Taylor and Brittany right now, or at least suggesting that Brittany isn't maybe someone that Taylor wants to hang out with as much as she ought to be hanging out with Turner and Monty. I think that's kind of the point of that particular conversation. So we've got that. And then finally, because of course they've stayed up all night, so why not just stay up a little bit longer? Everyone but Brittany, who's called it night. Everyone else is staying up to watch the sunrise in the backyard. They watch down low, then they go up in the balcony for a little while, and they mix a little pool in as well. And eventually, because of course no one goes to bed, eventually a few people take off. We've got Taylor alone in the hammock. She is pointing out concern, complaining, somewhere between them, that she is now in a final three with Monty and Taylor. And she's saying, yeah, I've signed on with a final three of Monty and Taylor and pretty much signed up for third place. She doesn't see herself necessarily being able to get past. She knows the two of them are tied. She asked earlier in the day, do you have an alliance with a final two with Turner and Monty? Said, no, we've never done anything like that. Everyone knows that, whether it's official or not. And Monty told the cameras at one point he had the final two, so it is official. But she knows how tight the two of them are, that neither one of them likely would take her to a final two. So she's understanding she's put herself in a rough position. But she's saying, I got a final three with the two guys, guy-girls, I think, alliance, or the guys-girl alliance, something like that. And she said, I even named it, and now I'm stuck in it, and I've basically signed up for third place. Well, this is what Brittany won the veto, and it's just the way it goes sometimes. But anyway, so there you go. I had to call it there. Turner got up, so by the time Turner's up and other people are moving around, Taylor may call it a night. No one's going to sleep in this house. It just goes on and on. But they had an early day. they had an early day and they're still awake. Anyway, all right, guys, we're going to shut it down. But that's the theme, right, or the summary right here is I really think veto ceremony tomorrow. Taylor's going on the block to replace Brittany. At that point in time, I think Alyssa's probably heading out the door. So our final four is going to be Monty, Turner, Taylor, and Brittany. And at least for a few of these, Brittany's going to be the number one target to send out at Final Four, which could leave the final three of Monty, Turner, and Taylor. We will find out. Guys, y'all have a fantastic Sunday. Enjoy a little NFL football and all of that. And again, 9/11. So just take a moment, a little silence, and reflect on what a incredibly horrible day that was so long ago. Have a good Sunday, guys. I will be back tomorrow morning to tell you everything that happened during the day and overnight. Until then, SKD 143. Cheers, guys.